Welcome to Season 2 of the Excel podcast. Join your host Kevin Selwood as he talks to a variety of people with useful and interesting things to say about all things to do with instructing and driver training. Throughout the series, there will be a mixture of local personalities from the driver training industry in the Exeter and Torbay areas, as well as nationally acclaimed trainers. Episodes include informative discussions regarding all aspects of running your business, as well as opportunities to find out a bit more about each interviewee. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hello everybody and welcome to this latest episode of the Excel podcast. I'm your host Kevin Selwood and I'd like to thank you for dropping by and listening to this edition. As you may be aware, if you've listened to other episodes in this season, the emphasis mainly has been on looking at standards checks and Part 3 tests and just trying to give some support, advice and suggestions on what you might do to try and make sure you succeed in these. We've been lucky enough to have some national figures come and talk to me about their ideas, but also I'd like to keep a local flavour to this as the podcast has its roots in sort of the Exeter, Torbay areas. And today I'm very pleased to be able to introduce to you one of our local instructors who actually trained with me, but he did struggle to get through his Part 3. I don't think he'll mind me saying that. And we'll go into the details of all of that and the experiences that he had and where he's got to now running his own business. So I'm very pleased to be able to welcome Tiverton's own Kevin Raven. Hi Kevin, thanks for joining me today.
Hi.
Thanks very much for giving up the time today. As I said to you beforehand, we've just had the man come to fit the thermostat who's been promising to come all afternoon. And we could have done this about 2 hours ago, and he has been doing a bit of drilling, so hopefully we're not going to get any of that.
No problem.
Right, so first of all, Kev, just give us a little potted history of where you've come from to get to where you are today.
Okay, no worries. So for me, I worked for a company called EDF. A lot of people might know about it in the Southwest. It was quite a big company in the Southwest at the time. And I spent 16 years there working in on the call centre initially and moved into training. And the last probably 5 or 6 years of that role was the training team manager. So I looked after a team of people in Exeter, in Plymouth, that did all the training for the company. So I have a kind of background in training. And I've been there 16 years, like I said. And then the offer of redundancy come up, and it's something that kind of appealed to me. I quite fancied doing something different.
So I thought you said you quite fancied being made redundant.
Made redundant and doing something different. Yes, kind of after all that time there, it was changing. The industry was changing a little bit, and I was on the cusp of that change, and I quite fancied doing something a little bit different. So I decided that 2016 was when they offered the redundancies, that I would take it and leave and go and do something a little bit different. But what I ended up sort of doing initially was going for some interviews, and I was driving back from an interview, driving back down the M5 back to the Southwest, and it kind of dawned on me at that point I was sort of going for a similar sort of job or the same sort of job, and the reason wanting to leave EDF at the time was because I wanted to do something different, and I wasn't doing that. So I got home from that drive and I spoke to my wife and I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I've got to do something different. So at the time, I knew Lisa Gorman was training with yourself because we talked about it because she was taking redundancy at the same time.
Because she was at EDF as well, wasn't she?
She was EDF, yeah. So we were talking about it, and I said, right, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look into it. And then she suggested that we caught up, and we had a kind of lunchtime catch-up chat type thing. You said bring the wife along, which I did. We had a chat with you. We talked about what it might involve, what the process is, and that was it. I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And that was, we started, I think, early 2017, so 6 years. It's coming up to 6 years already. And that's where I am today, sort of thing.
Yeah. Before we go any further, you've just mentioned Rachel. We are actually recording this on a special day, aren't we?
No, yesterday. Yesterday was
right.
not our anniversary, as in wedding, but our anniversary of going out for the first time.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, I haven't got my medal yet. I don't know when that's coming, but
I'm not sure you're the one who deserves the medal.
No, I think you're right. She does deserve the medal, but So that was it, really. That was 2017, and we started the training.
Yeah, and so you very kindly did your training with myself. It wasn't, as when we got to the part 3, it wasn't as plain sailing as we both might have hoped.
It was interesting, wasn't it? But I despite what was gone on, what we were kind of going through, I did look back at it, and I quite enjoyed it still, though.
Yeah.
And I look back and think about how different it is just after, like, the first standards check a year later, how things have changed, or how I've changed over that period of time. But there was some interesting drives and interesting goes at that part 3 on there. But
yeah, because just to let people know, we did go to the Last Chance Saloon, didn't we, with the 3rd attempt?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think I wanted to do one of these interviews with you because there are a lot of people, certainly in the local Facebook groups, and probably certainly around the country as well, who get into the same situation.
Yes.
And so some are successful and some aren't. So can you remember what any of the pitfalls were that caused you not to be successful on the first ones? Because I can remember one of them quite clearly, and it's probably the sort of pitfalls that people fall into, and it's certainly the pitfall that Ella and Phil and Penny talked about in one of the previous ones, and Bob Morton certainly mentioned it as well. Yeah. So can you think what I'm alluring to?
I'm trying not to remember what happened back then, but yes. You're talking about the dual carriageway one, aren't you?
Yes.
So the dual carriageway was my second attempt, actually.
Yeah,
and we'd been out practicing prior to that with the learner I was taking on the day, and it sort of went okay. It sort of went well. But the feedback from John was the not so much the lesson, although it didn't go according to plan, but more about kind of the route and why I did what I did. And the advice for him was, why did you go on here, off there, on here, on there with the dual carriageways? Why don't you just do a kind of simple loop? Get on, get off, go round, get on, get off, go round. And that was like perfect. That was just like, oh yeah, of course. Why didn't I? There was loads of things about that standards check. Part 3, the first one to the third one, just the difference in how I was preparing for that third one compared to the first one. What I've learned from doing the 2 that didn't go very well to the third one. And apart from all the stress and the hassle and the sleepless nights, I did quite enjoy the process in terms of what I've actually learned myself in terms of like my growth, as that kind of thing.
Yeah. Was it that one that, because I sat in the back of all of them, did I?
You did. Yeah, yes. You did, yeah.
Yes. Poor you, having 2 of us in the back. Because I think it was that one, it was a girl you took up there?
Yes. Yes, it was one.
And I remember watching her as we left, and I did not see a mirror check being done at all. Which is what John commented on at the end. And I think that was a classic case of what a lot of people fall into, of concentrating so much on what the topic is and determined to see that through, and missing something that's a fairly basic skill that needs to be sorted out first.
Yeah, missing lots of stuff. You are so focused on that we're going to do dual carriageways. This is what's going to get me my standards check, or my part 3, sorry, and that's it. And you miss so much. I think there was a little one in the first one we took when we did junctions at Countess Weir, and there was a problem with our steering, and I sort of addressed it, but not addressed it because I was so focused on what I needed to do. And you just get so blinkered into the goal that you've made all these hundreds of notes on and pages, and you're getting lost in them as you're going around, and you just forget about all the other stuff. It's crazy. And that really come to head on my second standards check, just a couple of months ago, where I'd done some prep, I'd done some planning, I made some notes, but actually I didn't even use the notes in the end. It was just felt like a normal lesson. And I was thinking to myself at that point, why couldn't I have just done that on my part 3? Why couldn't I have been that ready for it? It's crazy.
Because I remember that second part 3, the dual carriageway one, the actual joining and leaving the dual carriageways wasn't much of an issue at all.
No.
From what I remember. So you sort of probably get into the line of thought, you get back to the test centre and think, well, actually that went pretty well.
Yeah, it was just...
and then you get the crushing blow.
But it was like that, and as soon as he says that, you know straight away that, like, oh yeah, of course, it was obvious that I didn't do enough of that, because you're so focused on that one thing, and you get lost in your notes, and that's what you're trying to achieve on that day, and you just forget so much. It is quite a stressful process, but when someone just says that to you, it makes it sound so simple at the same time. It's bizarre.
It's like any of these things. You get a learner and you ask them a question, you can see they're sitting there and they're almost scared to give an answer, and they say, well, the answers must be obvious. And I said, well, all answers are obvious when you know them.
Yes, when you know it. Yeah.
But if you don't, I think if anybody takes only one thing from this session with you, it's that one. Don't be so focused on the topic. What are the underlying skills? The day that I see a part 3 or standards check summary from John O'Brien, the examiner you were talking about, that does not mention hazard routine or MSM, I think I've said this on a previous podcast, that I will give that person £100.
Yes, I when I heard that, actually, I was going to go and dig mine out to see if it's. But I'm sure it probably does. It will do. It does. Yeah. But it's trying to read. Oh look, yes.
Oh yeah, well no, of course we've got the situation now where they are all printed, so you can actually decipher the writing. But in those days, it was as if you're getting a prescription from the doctor, wasn't it? Trying to decipher it.
Yes, it is. You know what? My latest one, which I took a few months ago, it does mention very at the end MSN. It does. But we won't go into that now. Don't worry.
But so in the 6 years since qualifying, then you have clearly developed into, I wouldn't say a totally different instructor, but I imagine that your whole attitude to it and approach is a lot more relaxed, but also some things you do quite differently. Yeah,
I mean, like I said, the last one I did a few months ago, I planned it as normal. I'd driven the route. I had a learner that was, sort of prepped a little bit to help me out on the day. And I had my notes in my pad. I didn't have many notes, but I had some notes. Yeah. But the lesson just kind of happened, and I barely touched my notes. I barely needed to go through them or look at them or remind myself. We were just kind of in the zone, and it was such a great feeling finishing that, getting the result, and just thinking, wow, I did it. And you just, like I said, the difference between that and now, I mean, 6 years has passed already, which I can't believe, but 6 years has passed. But it's still a nice feeling to get the first standards check sort of done out the way. And
I suppose a lot of that also is that you're more comfortable with yourself and in the car because you've been doing it for a decent number of years as well, that you don't have to have a prop of notes. It's
Yes.
good to have something there just in case your brain goes to mush, but probably,
Yeah.
as you say, the longer you do it, the less you do have to rely on that sort of thing.
Yeah, it is like it, and just you sit back and you think, I've done it. Wow, I've achieved it. I'm now a proper driving instructor.
Yeah.
But some days I still have imposter syndrome, and I think, what how could I have done that different? How could I have done that better? What am I doing here? Some days are like that, but when the standards check and John O'Brien sits in the back, who still scares me when I see him in the test set. Though I still have shivers when I see him, but when he's sitting there saying, "Yeah, you've done it. You're good enough. Here's your result."
Yes.
It's quite a nice feeling to get.
Yes.
But getting there, it does stress you out a little bit, but it all pays off in the end.
Yeah, I think the standards check is something that does stress a lot of people out and worry about it, and others just seem to be able to take it as a breeze. I spoke to Jay. From Honiton of some time ago, and he had his coming up. He was basically saying that, well, I'm just going to go and do what I normally do. I'm not going to get stressed out by it because I've been doing it long enough. If what I'm doing isn't right, and I knew what he was doing was right, because you'll get some people who will say that, well, this is what I've been doing for 20 years. If the DVSA don't like it, then stuff it, and then they find actually the DVSA don't like it. And who are the people who are like that? And I think it's probably those who don't look to develop themselves.
Yes.
Afterwards.
I am dead keen on development. I read whatever I can read. I join whatever forum and group. I listen to your podcasts, everything. And
you said the right thing there.
Yeah, the podcast. I share that with everyone. But I don't just go, right, that's my standards check. Hopefully that's it for 2, 3 or 4 years, whatever. I think, right, what am I going to take away from that I now need to go and work on? And I do that, and I enjoy doing that.
Yeah.
Reflect on the lessons as much as the learners do, and think, what could I have done different?
Yes.
I love it. That's the part of the job that I like. I ain't just going to sit back and that's it for 4 years or whatever it may be.
But I think that's so important. You've alluded to it before about reflecting on it, and the days that it doesn't quite go right, what should or could I have done differently?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on, because you've touched on the next thing I want to look at with this sort of your CPD and what sort of things you've done, because you stayed with us for 3 years, 2 years?
About 3 of those years, yeah.
And then you decided I had enough of them.
That's it.
Well, and you went on your own for a while, didn't you?
Yes, I went on my own for about a year, and I loved what I did with you guys. I loved the fact we had fun when we were working together, and there was nothing about that. And when I said to you about wanting to kind of go independent, I got nothing but encouragement from you, which was really nice, because that's what Training Wheels was about, wasn't it? It wasn't about...
Well, as I said to you at the time, I think I would have been hypocritical, having left LDC myself to go and work with Christy and leaving a franchise. I think it would have been hypocritical for me to say, sorry, no, you can't go. No. Not that we could have stopped you anyway.
No, but it really kind of set me up. That's the foundations for the training, and that set me up. So I went independent for about a year, and it was literally just before lockdown and COVID happened that I got talking to Simon Ogborn, who's a Aussie independent driving instructor, and I asked him a question. I said to him one day, do you do driver instructor training? Because that was kind of the thing I really wanted to kind of look at next, if you like. And he said, no, he doesn't do that, but it's like he would like to do. So we kind of decided to get together and chat about it. Decided that actually let's do some training together. Let's do find a course and do one. And we did that. And then we was like, why don't we join forces and work together and set up a new business, a new driving school, rename it. Let's focus on obviously teaching learners, but also a bit of PDI work. And kind of that was where Integrity come about. We've been doing it a couple of years now. Yeah, it's just coming out for a couple of years, so which it's gone quite quick again. But it's great because it is a lonely job.
Yes.
And it's nice to have someone at the end of a phone. And I'm sure there'd be others on the Facebook groups and stuff that would do that. But it's nice to have someone that we can catch up once a week and talk about what's been going on, what our learners are like, and all the stuff that we talk about when we catch up.
And you did the train the trainer course of Try Coaching, didn't you? Is that right?
Yes, we did. We did. I think it was a 2-day course with them over a course of a couple of weeks with them. And we looked at others around. And we went with them and did that online. We did it on Zoom in the end, which was quite good. We really enjoyed it, and we got some material and stuff like that. And then we decided that we're going to do that.
Yeah, because I'm in the process of setting up one of these interviews with either Graham and or Sue from Try Coaching. Good. So that should hopefully will happen at some time during this season.
Yeah, that's.
And so you've got a few PDIs that you're training between the two of you.
Yes, so we've got a PDI each that we're training. They're both at the fairly early stages. They're both due to do their part ones fairly soon, so it's still early days. Yeah. But we are kind of using them. We only took on one each because we don't want to, overwhelm ourselves with work like that. And we're using them as our kind of guinea pigs, really. And we've explained to them when we met them and took them on that this is our first time of doing it. This is what it will be like for us as a bit of an experiment. Yeah. And they were absolutely brilliant about it. And they've been brilliant every week with it, which is really good.
Great. Yeah.
And we've got a guy that come to us who's done his training elsewhere, but he'd heard of Integrity. He looked at our website and he liked what we did, and he wanted to join us. So he's joined us and since gone on his pink license just recently, actually. So he's sitting and operating out of Tiverton part-time at the moment because he's still at work, but he's looking to take redundancy and join us full-time, which would be quite nice.
Excellent. Yeah. So the future's looking rosy.
Yeah, we're growing slowly, and we only want to grow slowly. We're in no kind of rush because we're both learning, and it's we're learning together, sort of thing.
And it is a different ball game doing the instructor training, and at times I've thought, why did I do it that way?
Yeah, but I cast my mind back to when we were doing ours and the role play and the fun that you had with catching me out and
I don't like to think of it as catching you out. I think it's more of an emphasising this is what perhaps you should have been doing.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
At times it was fun, but I don't like the idea that it's there for. And I think this is one of the problems with the role play. Sometimes is the trainer can be there just to sort of make the PDI feel little. And I'd like to think we didn't do that. If something happened, we just had a good laugh about it at the end. Yeah. Right, we did have a little bit of a hiatus there because I've had a man putting a new thermostat in who then wanted to know all about my details for the app. So apologies if we've got a bit of a hiatus at that point. So we've basically covered everything to do with the driving, and I always like to finish these things off with a little bit about the person. Now, the problem with you, Kevin, is that with me, not a problem with you, but a little knowledge could be a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
And 2 years ago, I had a learner whose mother. It was at this point where my thermostat man required my attention on downloading the new app and giving me some instructions on how to use it. So we did have a little bit of a hiccup with the recording, but hopefully you'll be able to pick it up quite easily once it starts again. So fingers crossed all is okay. Arthur actually is just about to start training with me. who was absolutely fantastic learner, but also was an even better, well, probably better, she's a fantastic driver, but she is now an England international at Tae Kwon-Do. Now, I'm just reading her latest Facebook thing that she's trying to get some funds to help her, because she's been selected to represent England with the ITF England national taekwondo team at the European Championships in Romania next month and the World Championships in Finland in September. And she apparently is a second-degree black belt. Now, here's where the little knowledge comes in, and the reason why I'm doing this is because one of your big passions is indeed taekwondo. Tell us a bit about it. Yeah.
Yes. So I've been doing taekwondo for January this year was 15 years. And 11 of those years I've been a black belt. And your friend, you said second degree. So I'm in the process of going for my fourth.
Right.
We call it, fourth dan or fourth degree black belt. You get to a black belt and you think it all stops there. That's it. You're done. But no, you keep learning and you keep plodding on. And there's another one, and there's more to learn and that kind of stuff. So I do taekwondo twice a week, and I run my own club once a week in Witheridge, and I love it. It's great for days after stressful days in the car.
Because it's a combat situation that you're actually, fighting's the wrong word, but you're competing against somebody else. Because I know Holly has done some things that, I can't. It sort of looks a bit like the equivalent of dressage, where you're doing sort of certain movements or something. Yes, right.
Oh, they're called patterns. So each bout that you progress through, you get to learn a new pattern, and the pattern is a set number of moves, and you do the same moves each time in the same sequence as a pattern.
Right.
To learn the techniques, really. You start off, and a typical pattern at a yellow belt stage would have something like 19 to 24 moves in it. And then you get to black belt stage. When you get to your black belt, you get 3 new ones to learn each black belt you come up against. And they have as much as 68 moves in it.
Oh, right.
And you have to remember the sequence of those moves and do that. So that's the kind of thing we talk about. Your friends...
Yes, that's what I thought.
There's 2 different types, WTF, ITF. Yeah, so the Olympic style, which is what your friend does, they don't do much punching. They do mostly kicking. And the style I do is a more of a traditional style, self-defense style.
So, yes, I'm just looking at some photos of her on her Facebook page, and the kicking is definitely very apparent. Yeah, she was in the university's winter championships, and she's got a gold medal for 67 kilograms sparring and a bronze medal for patterns. So we still do competitions like that. When you get to black belt stage, they want you to put back into taekwondo, so you do things like umpire courses, referee courses, and you go to these competitions to volunteer at them, basically. So I'm a qualified referee part 1. I've got my part 2 coming up soon. And I go to competitions, and I'm able to be the one stood in the middle of the fight. Which I'm a bit selective as to which fights I pick, because a lot of them are bigger than me. So anything up to about 10 years old is fine. Anything bigger than that, and that's it. I stay out the way a little bit. So go on.
There's the different types of styles. We can punch more than the Olympic style. That's the only kind of difference, really. But
posted every now and then some of her training sessions. Whenever she got in the car, I said, I'm not going to get on the wrong side of you the way that you kick that punch bag.
it's good fun. Like after days in the car where it's a bit stressful, it's quite nice to be able to kind of go and do that.
Yeah.
But great for fitness as well. So
excellent. Right. Well, that's brilliant, Kev. Thanks ever so much for doing all of this. Say there's definitely some things in there that I think certainly some people going for their part 3, and also those going for standards check would do well to listen to and take heed of. So thank you so much for your time. And,
no worries.
We'll give you a wave on the road next week. I think we passed each other today, didn't we, at some point?
Brilliant.
Yes. Yeah.
I think we did. Yes.
That's great. Thanks ever so much.
Good. No worries at all. Happy to help.